November is a busy time of year when it comes to planting evergreens. You can see here I've got 3 holes pre-excavated, which I will be planting in today. And you can also see that I've had to remove a bunch of rock and dirt mixed with rock, where a couple years ago I made a mistake of putting down pea gravel. It mixed right in with the dirt, and weeds were able to grow in that. So I've since advanced my rock mulch concept. You can see here I've just planted 2 new trees. This one is the silverberry, Elaeagnus pungens, and right behind that a very small Prunus laurocerasus cherry laurel. This is not your typical, I'll show you another one here. There's another one. It's not your typical cherry laurel you see at like Home Depot or Lowe's, where it's like the autolichen or the skip laurel. This is the actual cherry laurel, I believe, maybe straight species even. And that means it's going to be more tree-like when it grows. And even though it's tiny now, they can actually grow really fast. And over here, I've shown this before, not this one, but same species, another devilwood, Cartrema americana. Keep in mind these are all evergreens. This one's native to North America, whereas the cherry laurel is native to Europe. But they can both tolerate zone 6, and since I'm in zone 7, I feel comfortable in planting them in this particular spot, which is partial sun north facing. So that's going to be colder than most other parts of the evergreen collection. And you can see here my new rock strategy involves putting the large rocks in the spaces in between the trees. And right around the base of the trees I put some large like river pebbles / miniature boulders, and that's more permeable to let the water in. But in this particular site right here, I also have to contend with trampling because I have a dog, and I mentioned this in another video. This is the very back of my lot, and the dog likes to get back here and jump around and bark at the neighboring dogs. So that's why I've gone a little bit more aggressive with the rock mulch in this spot. And also I want to show you the most aggressive hostile gardening architecture that I could come up with to keep the dog away from these 2 Thuja green giants. And in the short time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks that they've been planted without these defenses that I just put in place, there's already been several smaller branches at the bottom that were ripped off. Maybe hard to see. I think you can tell there. That branch is going to have to come off, just from the fact the dog gets back here and kind of bounces around on these trees. So I put these big steel plastic-coated garden stakes in the ground, and I've also precariously balanced a number of angular paving stones. And she doesn't really want to walk on top of those or even get near them, so that keeps her away. And shouldn't bother the trees at all, because these Thuja green giants are extremely resilient. And so they'll get plenty of water in this spot as well, and they can handle partial shade. So that's what I've done there. But my main goal today is to get a lot more planted, and we'll see if I can see how much I can get done before the frost hits next weekend. Okay, I finished adding the rock around these 2 trees, the Elaeagnus and the cherry laurel, and now I'm beginning to plant the next 2, and I'm going to have another Elaeagnus here at the back, and in the front I'm going to plant the Illicium henryi. So that should do well on this spot. Again, this is a partial shade area, not too dry because it's north facing, but pretty good drainage because it's up on a little rise here. And then right next to that I'm going to put the Ardisia japonica Chiraman cultivar that I found at Lowe's by chance, because it's pretty much right underneath this Pinus glabra spruce pine here, and it's going to get plenty of shade, but a little bit of sun, as you can see, at one point in the day. I've got this pathway here that allows some sunlight to pass through. Actually, I was just noticing how cool the evergreen collection looks from this angle. To look at this scene, it would be kind of hard to conceive of the fact that this is late November and everything in front of you is still evergreen. That's really what I'm going for in this themed evergreen planting here. And you can see I've got a mix of conifers and broadleaf evergreens that really gives it a natural forest look, some understory plants, some tall here. This tall one here with the leaves is Sweet Bay Magnolia, Magnolia virginiana, and then as I said before, I've got Pinus glabra here, spruce pine, and I've got a little yew in the front here, regular Hicks yew, and then over here the Pieris japonica. Right next to that, Picea rubens, the native Tennessee red spruce. I've got a little Vanderwolf pyramid, Pinus flexilis, tucked in here. There's a Deirdre green giant back there, and in the foreground, Illicium parviflorum from Florida. And there's another Illicium I'll show you right here, Illicium floridana, also from Florida, but interestingly this one has a much larger range than just Florida. And there is my Pinus parviflora, Japanese white pine, another Magnolia virginiana. I think this one might be Moonlight or something like that. And providing the height is two loblolly pines, Pinus taeta. So I'm really satisfied with how this section of the evergreen planting is coming right along. There's my Picea omorica, Serbian spruce. If I step back in here, Trocodendron aurelioides, wheel tree. I've got the Leucothui axillaris, coastal dog hobble, and then in the shade here, the Cephalotexus harringtonia, Japanese plum yew. And the other big vertical element here is this incense cedar, Calicedrus decurrens. So it's important, I think, to stop and enjoy the evergreen planting while you're out here working in it. Otherwise, you never really get to stop and reflect on how good it's coming along. This incense cedar, I guess, has been in the ground for approaching 5 years, maybe. Fantastic grower. I've done plenty of videos about it, so you don't really, contrary to what you might expect with a name like incense cedar, you don't smell anything. All I'm smelling now is the very fragrant loblolly pines right behind it. I guess maybe the wood of the incense cedar is fragrant, but on the outside I smell nothing. Alright, I'm getting ready to plant this other Elaeagnus here, silverberry, and it's been sitting in a pot all summer long basically, and I've been watering it, obviously to keep it alive. So I bought it in the spring when they became available at Lowe's, but I couldn't get around to planting it because there was a bunch of other stuff to plant. So now it's time to plant it, and before I do that I want to show you that I've gone ahead and pre-filled my holes here with my mixed dirt. So what I do is I take my regular soil here and crumble that up into tiny pieces, and then I mix in, not too much, a little bit of sand here, all-purpose sand, and some of this Miracle-Gro tree and shrub soil, and then a little bit of potting mix as well. And then I also usually put in a little bit of peat moss, and I think that that combination has worked out really well in terms of modifying this brown clay heavy soil that we have to be a little bit lighter and hold moisture better. So what I'm going to do now is figure out how to turn this multi-trunk, multi-stem Elaeagnus into a single stem tree, because with all of my evergreens I only want one trunk, one main leader. I'm growing for height. I don't need bushes usually. So I'm going to start off by taking a look at the base down here and seeing right off the bat there appear to be two stems emerging from the ground, and I'm going to eliminate one of those. Now, in the past I have kind of taken a hatchet and with some bushes, like on the Turnstroemia, the Claera, I will cut that in half, and usually it's two separate plants that can survive on their own. And if you cut the root ball in half with a hatchet, you can plant them separately and have two plants, so two for the price of one. This one I don't really need to do that, and so I'm probably just going to cut one off at the base after I take a look at the branching structure. So the first one, let's see, has a big branch coming off to the side here. I don't know if I really like that. And then after that, the branches kind of get small. Let's look at the other one here. The other one looking pretty good, but then it kind of makes a big V. I definitely don't like that, but I will take a look at the branching structure above that. Let's see here. This one, if I can isolate just this one, that actually looks pretty decent. There's a number of side branches going all the way up. Pretty tall, actually. It does get a little lanky at the top up here. But the other one, let's see, this thing is hard to handle. The other one kind of branches out into a bunch of small stuff that I don't really like. And the one big one here has a dead end. So I think that this middle stem here that I'm showing is the one I'm going to keep, and I'll probably cut it off right about there and let it regrow a new leader from that spot. But I really like all the side branching. It looks like a good structure. You can see the one behind it here where I've kind of already done that. This one had a more obvious single leader, but you can actually see at the very bottom I did chop off completely the other stem that was growing out of there. Over time, I'm hoping that the side branches will get thicker and really fill in, and I can form essentially a conical or pyramidal shaped tree that's wide at the base and narrows at the top. I don't want it to get too lanky because we do have ice storms around here, so it'd be a shame for it to break in an ice storm. I'm not sure about the hardness of the wood on the Elaeagnus tree, but it has the potential to get pretty tall. So let me get this trimmed up and I'll show you the result. Okay, here's the finished result of trimming the Elaeagnus. Now it is down to a single trunk, and it's still got some good height to it, fairly good trunk thickness all the way to the top. I did trim the extreme top up here, hoping that that will sprout a new leader, and I've got plenty of side branches there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get that in the ground, see how that turns out. Alright, the Elaeagnus is in the ground here. Turned out pretty good. And now it's time to start planting the last two for this section. First one here is Illicium henryi, which is a species of Illicium from China and should be pretty cold tolerant, even though it doesn't look like it's going to be cold tolerant. It looks kind of tropical actually, but as I have seen and noted in many previous videos, Illicium is extremely cold tolerant. And the last one is a little bit more risky. This is the Ardisia japonica, the Chiraman cultivar. I picked this up at Lowe's kind of on a whim, but actually I researched it a little bit with my phone when I was in the Lowe's Garden Center, but I think it should be fine. It's a shade-loving, relatively low ground cover, and I'm going to put it in this spot right here, so it's going to be mostly underneath the spruce pine and kind of fill in this area of nothingness here so that it's not just solid rock. So we'll see how that does. I usually don't plant ground covers. Obviously, in this case, I'm not going to be trimming to single leaders because it's just kind of a shrubby little thing here, but I'll leave every branch on the Illicium because it's pretty sparse now, and see how well it grows next year, and eventually eliminate this very low branch down here so it can be growing taller. Well, this is how the Ardisia turned out. I ended up spreading out the roots kind of around the plant and burying them lightly with soil. So let's see if this spreading evergreen ground cover can, number one, survive the winter, and number two, continue to spread in this mostly shady location, although it does get some direct sun here and there. There's the Illicium henryi and the other Elaeagnus pungens. So I'm going to move on to a different area of the evergreen collection and start an even bigger project.